This air-layered Epipremnum pinnatum has finally rooted, and today we're doing the chop. But we're not just sticking it in water or soil and hoping for the best. We're walking through exactly what I do after air layering to keep the plant healthy, growing, and ready for its forever home. This is called an Epipremnum pinnatum Asian form. And just to give you some background, it's been growing on this moss pole. Right. And, oh, hang on, I can't actually get it to the top. This is the bottom of the plant. Look, I have not taken very good care of this moss pole, but despite that, this is what the top leaves look like. So I decided to redeem myself. I didn't want to completely get rid of this plant, so I have done what is called air layering. So in this black bowl over here, I've got some sphagnum moss that I've been keeping moist for quite some time, and I'm hoping that their roots that have developed in this bowl. And we're gonna chop this plant and we're gonna have the tip cutting. So this is what they call the tip cutting for obvious reasons.
Okay, I'm fascinated by what you're calling this ball. It's black. And the questions in my mind right now are, how did you get it there? Because there's this plant that's in there and there's a plant that's
everywhere,
kind of flourishing there.
Yeah.
And this thing is in between.
Yes.
How did this happen?
And all I did was, because this plant was not very attached to the moss pole, I just moved it to the side and I just sort of shimmied the ball to the back and put it in there, put the sphagnum moss in, and I just closed it.
So I noticed that you have these holes. Are you saying this ball comes in two parts?
It opens.
It opens up.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
It opens up. So we're gonna actually open it up, and you'll see what's going to happen, and it's going to be fantastic. Okay. So today, the first job that we've got today is we're just going to cut the plant. Okay. The really important thing when you're doing this is you're using a very, very sharp, whether it's, you know, a box cutter, whatever it is you're using, it's very, very sharp. So I'm just using a knife that I've sterilized earlier, and of course, the most important thing is you're not cutting at the top.
Actually, I was going to ask that question. I just didn't want you to realize how dim I may be sometimes. But I just wondered if you cut, because that's the one.
Yeah, because the roots are here. So if you cut at I know, and I've had to think about this a few times myself. So no, there's no dumb questions because it's very much a reality that the natural instinct is to cut at the top. But no, we want to cut at the bottom because we want to retain the roots. So this is the stem that we're working with. Okay. And we're just doing a very simple cut.
Do you want me to cut to touch here?
No, I would actually rather your hands don't go there at all.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Safety first.
Yes, yes. So that's actually cut now.
All right.
Yeah. And because the plant's area roots, I'll put my knife away before I stab someone. The area roots aren't actually attached to the moss pole. It'll actually be quite easy. So this is now only
remove the rope.
Yeah, it's only being held by this rope.
Oh, it's in my hands. Yeah. And it's separated. Yeah. Oh my goodness, this is clever.
And that is exactly what we're going for.
That is clever.
Yeah. So if you put it down there like so, you guys can see.
Wow. I'm holding the top part of this.
And that is, I don't know. I'll have to think about what I'm going to do with that. But yeah, that's it. Okay, here we are. So this is our cutting over here, our top cutting. It looks really, really good because I'm going to give you the honor of opening up the bowl so we can see what's happening there.
There we go. Ooh, gently, gently.
No, you don't have to be gentle.
Well,
we don't do gentle here.
Oh, look at that! Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Look at that! Oh my goodness!
Do you see?
This is so amazing.
Isn't it just?
Are actually going round the bowl.
So the roots have developed from some part of the stem, and because the sphagnum moss was moist, they have proliferated, and that is now a viable plant. And that's the whole point of air layering. You're basically propagating the plant while it's still on the mother plant. Isn't it?
Yes.
Whoa! Oh no, I know, I broke it.
Is that a problem?
No, it's not a problem. I just love the circular nature of it. It looks nice as a
Yeah, well, as
circle.
long as the roots don't break in the
The
process.
roots are not going to break. They're quite
Oh, okay.
robust. The roots are not going to break. You can see there.
Wow.
So in some cases, depending on your plant, depending on the season, you can actually have a much, much bigger root ball, depending on how long you've kept it. So this one, I'm not really happy with this plant actually, because all these roots that we're seeing are coming from this one.
Ah,
right?
For a moment there, I wondered whether everything was going to drop off.
So the other bit here, it hasn't rooted. This section over here hasn't really done what that bit has done.
But is that enough to hold a
Oh,
plant?
it's plenty to hold the plant as long as I don't break it right now.
Stop whatever you're doing now and do the right things.
Yeah, so now what I really need to do, what I want to do is I'm going to take this outside very, very gently and I'm going to wash it because I want to get the sphagnum moss off the roots, so as much of that as I can. And I'm just going to use but you can see how there's quite a lot of roots.
And they've really gone and wrapped and gone into this sphagnum moss, as you call it?
Sphagnum moss, yes.
And so it is worrying that it's all coming from one point. So you really need to take care of this baby.
Yes, I do. All right. Okay, we are back. I am back from outside and look at that. That is the root system that we're working with.
Actually, as I said earlier, yes, there's a bit of a disappointment that you only have one place where the roots have really come out, but they look like a strong bunch of roots.
They do. They just look absolutely brilliant. Take a look at those. And you've got those lovely white tips at the ends, lots and lots of secondary, tertiary roots.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really happy with this.
Another question, how long did this take?
Oh, months.
Oh, okay.
Yes, months. And you can see how well developed this root system is. This is not something that took 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It literally was months. And to be fair, it probably could have been better. I'm pretty sure there are times when the ball was not as moist as it should be.
Which leads me to another question. How did you have to specifically target the ball and water it?
Yes, okay. Yes, because it does get dry.
Oh, okay.
It does get, so I'd go there with my little bucket or whatnot and literally put liquid in that little bowl and have that sphagnum moss absorb the liquid.
So that kind of explains it for me, that the bottom part of the plant may not have received the nourishment and the care that it needed, but because you were taking care of the ball, the roots were able to flourish regardless.
Yes.
I just want to follow up that with the question regarding how long it takes. Obviously, you've been doing this for some time. So if I'm new to this and I do want to go and try it, what should I look out for to know that there must be
it's done
there?
It's done.
Yes. I can't see inside.
Yeah, you can't see inside. No, I'm not counting months because it depends on the conditions. It depends on the plants. It depends on how moist you're keeping the sphagnum moss. It depends whether the temperature is ideal for the plant, all those kinds of things. And with this, I was sticking my finger down there and sort of feeling around. But you can also just sort of open the bowl and just sort of see what's going on.
All right. And without causing damage.
Without causing damage. You saw how when you opened it, you were able to easily open it. But also when you open it, you could see the shape. The sphagnum moss had taken the shape of the bowl.
Yeah.
And the reason it did that is because the roots were providing that scaffold.
So that's a piece of information that's worth noting. There is something that is happening when the roots are coming out and creating their
So
own
when
pathway.
the roots are there, they literally attach to the sphagnum moss, and that sphagnum moss is no longer loose, which is why it was hard to remove some of the sphagnum moss without me using water. So I took this outside and literally used the jet setting of my hose to just spray using pressure to sort of get the moss off.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to do with this bit over here. So we're talking about the the cut, the place where we made that cut.
It's a sore, some kind of...
It is, yes. We've made a wound.
Yeah.
We've made a wound on the plant. And what's going to happen with this tip cutting now is we need to place it in whatever it's going to grow in. So if you're growing your plant in soil, you put this in soil. If you're growing it in pond, you put it in pond. If you leca. But we've created this wound and this is open. And if we put it in water, leca, or pond, or whatever it is that has moisture, this is going to start absorbing moisture, the stem.
Okay. What's the problem with absorbing moisture?
Then it's going to start rotting. Stems don't.
Okay.
This kind of stem are not, the roots are the ones that absorb the moisture. So if this starts to absorb moisture, then it starts to rot, and then it'll become soft, it'll become black, and that rot is going to start to rise and rise, and that's going to be then. So what needs to happen is we need to allow this part to callus. So what you can do to allow the scab to form is you can air dry it.
Oh, okay.
So we can just leave it, come back again in 2 hours. And there'll be sufficient scab on that so that it's not absorbing as much water as it would if the wound was fresh.
So if we leave it to do that, should we be worried about the roots being in the open?
That is a good question. I get people asking me that all the time. Yes, I think so. I mean, I guess it depends on the roots and depends on how long. But then roots are meant to be moist, right? So I think leaving them out in the open air is probably not the best of ideas. Okay. So what you can do is just get a kitchen towel, moisten that up, and you can put your roots in between.
All right.
And you just put that there. And that should be sufficient if you're only going for a few hours. There's other things you can do. So you can use a wax to seal it. So we can use something to seal the wound. We can use a wax to seal it. You can even use super glue. So I've put my glue there. And I'm just going to let that dry. So while the plant is drying, I'm going to bring the moss pole that we're going to put the plant on, because the next stage is the moss pole. So today we are using this one. So this is a pre-made moss pole. I didn't have to make this one. It's a plastic moss pole. And this is a moss pole from my friend Andy of the Leafy brand. And this is, I think, what he calls the 3.0 moss pole. And it's really fancy because there's no clips. And this goes into that little hole over there. And it's all very, very fancy. Okay, so this is the pot that we're going to put the plant in.
Okay.
So in deciding how to fill this moss pole, I got my pot and I got my pole and I put it like that. So you can see that the moss starts where the pot ends. Yeah. I don't want any of that moss in there because it will stay too moist and it might cause a root rot in my plant.
So at some point during this process, are you going to explain how the moisture gets to the plant if the moss is starting quite apart from...
Yes, because the moss has really, at this stage, the moss has got nothing to do with how the plant gets moisture.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. This is now just adding support for the plant and, moss pole doing the moss pole thing. But moisture for the plant is a completely separate issue.
Okay.
So this is going to be the bottom. The top of our plant is going there.
Okay.
Now, the beautiful thing about the Leafy brand Moss Pole 3.0 is we don't need cable ties for that to attach the plant. So we just open these little tabs here.
Oh, is that the use of those tabs?
Yes. So if you can just open the tabs on your end, if you can...
All of them?
No, not all of them. So just in the middle, because remember our plant starts here. So this is where we're going to start attaching.
Okay, so I've opened that.
Yeah, so good. And so we'll open these ones down here.
Oh, this is brilliant.
And I want this one to sort of not be right at the bottom of the pot. So just suspend it at the top a little bit. But also, exactly. So I have to think about that as well. So I need to make sure the roots are there. And I know it's the third one. That's where I counted. That's where the moss starts.
All right.
At the third tag. So now we are simply closing off the tags, making sure that it's just the stem. We're not clipping the leaves.
That was actually the question I was going to ask you.
Oh, good-o.
Because I was going to clip that leaf.
We are not clipping the leaves. So what this does is it puts those area roots in direct contact with that moist moss. And so you will find things will happen very, very quickly from this point on, as long as I keep it moist. Okay. Yeah, I would say that looks pretty good. So that is what our plant now looks like. That's our tip cutting, and that plant is going to keep growing up, and you will obviously, I'll have to extend this
at some point
very quickly, which is why I've actually put this metal rod at the bottom of that moss pole. When I get this, I'll just put it on top and it'll slot into that, making things a little bit easier for me. That's what the bottom looks like.
Right.
And this is the part of the plant that's going to be in the Leca clay balls. So all this is going to be in the Leca.
So these roots are what are going to absorb the moisture?
Yeah, all these roots will absorb because the Leca is going to be moist.
Okay.
And there'll be a reservoir at the bottom, and the moisture will be coming from the bottom going up to the top.
Okay, that's great.
Alrighty, so this is our planter. We're going to put a little bit of Leca at the bottom first. All right, now I will take that. Before we do that, I'm going to put some Leca in here.
Oh.
Yes.
Why, to balance the plant?
No, well, not really. So these roots here, they're going to be in the Leca, and you might find that if we put it in there, the Leca doesn't really get into there.
Okay.
So I'll have you tilt it on that side.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly it. And I'll put the Leca there. And yeah, I'm not doing a very good job, am I?
Well, we'll get there, don't worry.
Put it like that. And every time I do something like this, there's always Leca everywhere on the floor because of that. And I spend the next 20 minutes after I'm done making the video picking up the Leca. Yeah. So now I'll hold it like this so we don't undo all the work we've done.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's not ideal, but you know, it kind of gets the job done. So
you can fill it in now.
So now I want it to be a bit higher up. So there's there. Push it towards the edge of the pot, and that's it. Okay. That's what we want. And now we fill the rest of the pot up with Leca. And if we have done our job right, then that pole should be able to stand
without
unsupported.
Yeah.
So do you want to, no, wait, let me put a bit more. Do you want to let go for a sec? There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. That is exactly what we are looking for. That is it. That is our Epipremnum pinnatum plant. Tip cutting, potted up on a new moss pole into some Leca clay balls.
Wow.
So this is the reservoir.
Okay.
This is the reservoir. We'll just push this to the side for a sec. So this is the reservoir that we're going to put our plant in. It's got two of them, and I was going to put another plant here, but I've changed my mind. The good thing about this reservoir is it's very, very deep. It's got a very deep reservoir. So we'll put the nutrient solution in this.
Okay.
And we're going to be using a Clonix clone solution and a root zone.
Okay.
And what that solution does, it's a rooting solution. So it's still going to encourage the plant to form roots because we still want that.
Yes.
If the plant is new, we still want it to keep forming more roots, and it's going to feed the plant at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what's going to happen. And I will also put an air stone in here. Okay, so now that will sit in here. And that is that. That's going to sit there and it's going to stay there for a few weeks.
Okay.
Maybe even more than a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I will move it from this position once I start to see roots coming out of the bottom. So this is the halfway mark for this plant. And then, but the other thing as well, the thing I will see is I'll see new leaves.
Yes.
The new leaves will start to form as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's been 4 months since we put this plant on this moss pole in this operation. About 128, 29 days thereabouts. And oh my gosh, things have been happening. First of all, of course, the always important thing about doing anything with a plant is that it's still alive. So that's win number one. And you can see here that the plant has been growing and there's actually a little bit of new growth that's coming through over there. Check that out. This is the latest leaf over there and right at the tip there. Oh, it's a bit hard to show. There we go. Right there is some new growth coming through. Right there, right there. This is the newest leaf. How gorgeous does that look? And that's what it's in. Things have gone really, really well with this, but what's really, really fun is what I'm about to show you now. Look at the roots of that plant. The first tell that things are going really well with this is I'm actually picking it up by the moss pole and nothing is falling out. Look at that. Look at those amazing roots. Just look at them. They look like the most delicious noodles you could ever eat. Look at that. You can see the sort of like root primordials over there, secondary roots about to come through. Look at this. How amazing is that? I mean, with roots like this, it's not surprising that this is what has happened with the growth of this plant. And I've been doing a pretty decent job of keeping this moss pole moist. And I don't know if you can see the area roots that have grown in the sphagnum moss and tree fern fiber combo. Things are looking good. So I think we've gone as far as we can go in this pot with this plant. It's time to put it in its forever pot. Now, it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky. I don't want to put it down. I'm looking into here and I've actually found this. My root actually broke off. It broke off from this one over here. It was actually longer than this. It was like this, if you can believe it. And that's the tip there. You can see how it was actually growing. So that was a casualty, I guess, of me picking it up out of this pot. So what's really going to be interesting to see is how I'll be able to successfully or not get it out of this pot and into its new one. And trying to not get leca everywhere, I've got my potting mat here and I am going to attempt to try and get this out. Okay, that's step one accomplished. Now I need to get it off this little thing. Now that is what is probably going to be impossible. I clearly did not think this through. You know, did not think this through. It's not even really about not thinking it through. I probably left it in here for a little bit too long. It's been a bit of peeling of the outer root, but honestly, I'm happy with that. That is the root system of my plant. I'm really, really happy with that. Okay, so now we're going to put this in a new pot and put it in its forever cash pot. Okay, so I am putting it in this 18 centimeter pot, which I think will work well. I think, I really, really hope it will. And that's gonna go in that. And I'm gonna actually have a water level indicator in this one because I think it's gonna be really difficult to see what's happening and to pick it up once that plant really takes off. I've got my Leca here. I'll get my water level indicator and position that there and put my Leca. That looks okay. Going to get my plant and just try and position that and see how that works out. That actually looks perfect to me. That looks really good. I'm just gonna fill the rest of that pot up with Leca. This pot here is a little bit on the firm side, so I can't really squish it to have the Leca settle. So I've got a little acrylic stick that I'm pushing in there really gently, trying not to damage my roots, and just pushing the Leca in. Doing this will make sure that my pole is stable, and it will also make sure that I don't have too many big gaps of just air with the plant roots not being in contact with the Leca. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that looks. That is very, very stable indeed. I've got my water level indicator there. To be honest, I'm not really quite happy with where I've placed my water level indicator. It's right there in the, you know, right in front of the plant. I want it to be there. I don't know what the heck I was doing or what I was thinking. I'm now gonna have to redo this whole thing to make sure that my water level indicator is here. And it's not really easily done. You know, if it was potting mix, I could have just pulled it out and just put it on the side and that would be it. But because it's Leca, it's not really gonna work. So I have to, I don't know, I really don't want to take everything out.
One eternity later.
And I am now happy with the placement of my water level indicator. Okay, now that I have that sorted, I will put my plant in my cash pot. And ooh, I am loving this. And I get my nutrient solution. So we go back again to my Clone-X Clone solution. And the only reason we're doing this is because I've been mucking around with the roots. And remember how I've actually peeled off some of them. My roots are probably not as happy as they can be. So I'm putting Clone-X Clone solution probably for the next 2 weeks or so until that plant is happy again. And then I'll go back to my normal foliage focus. So I love that I've got a water level indicator in this. And that is going to bung up the second. There we go. She's moving. And she's coming up, 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 up. And that's where I need that to be. And that is on my maximum level. And I will simply put my plant back exactly where it was. And yeah, I think this plant is really, really happy and is ready to go. So before I close this off, that is what my plant now looks like. And because my plant is sort of like somewhere here, that moss pole is almost done. I've got another one and I will simply put another one on top. And I kept this metal rod in there because I think it's just going to give it a little bit more stability, honestly. I'm going to just slide the next moss pole there on top and it's just going to be functioning as one unit and it's going to look so good. But that is my Epipremnum Pinnatum air layered and now looking fantastic. I know you guys love a good moss pole. Watch this next video where I show you everything I know about moss poles. I'll see you there.